Essentially trapped inside his own body for about a decade of his life. He could see and hear everything around him, but he couldn't talk, and he couldn't control his body movements.
Comas are extremely complicated, and no one really understands what's going on. A coma basically means that you are in an unconscious state, and you're unable to be woken up. Sometimes comas can last for several days, but some have been known to last for years, or even decades. Lots of people recall their experiences while they were in a coma, and I'm here to share with you guys some of their crazy stories. And I've read a lot of books on coma stories for some reason. I find a fascination with them. So you know what? This is the top 10 scary coma stories you won't believe. Well, how's it going, you guys? I'm your host for this one, Landon Do Not Sing, and welcome back to another most amazing top 10 video. If you guys like what we do here, don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe. Right now we're on the road to 6 million subscribers. The question is, can we do it? And also let me know in the comment section below, what is the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? Let me know down there because I'm curious. I want to try to get to know you guys a lot better. Alright, let's dive right into this list. First up, the 3-year-old addicted to cigarettes kicks things off in at number 10. I mean, what the heck did I just say? Well, Ya Wen was only 3 years old when she was involved in a horrific car accident that left her in a coma for 5 days. When the little girl woke up, her mother said that her personality changed dramatically. Instead of acting like a sweet 3-year-old girl that they used to be, she began acting like an adult. Her mother even caught her hiding in the bathroom and smoking cigarettes. A local store owner even gave her cigarettes on credit because he assumed that she wanted them for her father. But what kind of person gives a 3-year-old smokes? That has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and I've heard of a lot of dumbness. And if that wasn't enough, the little girl likes to drink beer and alcohol too. Apparently she can drink 3 glasses of beer no problem. Hopefully this little girl is getting the help she needs, because if things keep going at this rate, I doubt that she'll make it to her 10th birthday. Up next, and at number 9, we have the mother who was put in an induced coma, and this is in order to save her baby's life. Could you guys imagine waking up and finding out that you're giving birth, but you have no recollection of what happened? Well, for Valerie Leah, her labor was definitely very unique. When she was 27 weeks pregnant, she got sick with the swine flu, and in a desperate attempt to save both herself and her unborn child, the doctor decided that they have to put her in an induced coma and perform a C-section. It wasn't until 3 weeks after her baby was born that she was able to hold her son. Her baby only weighed 2 pounds 10 ounces, so it was a miracle that he was able to survive. It's amazing to see how far we've come with technology and medical interventions. Just think, maybe a decade ago, both this mother and her son may not have lived. Living in an alternate reality creeps onto this list. It for sure creeps me out. And at number 8, this story, coma story, comes from Reddit user Nitzlarb. Pretty sure I said it wrong, but she said that her dad was in a coma for about 2 months, and this was a couple of years ago. They were recently talking about his experience and what he felt while he was in his coma. Her dad said that he had dreamed or hallucinated that he had been living for 10 years. Apparently he did a bunch of things too during that time. Her dad said that these dreams were very vivid and they felt super real. He said that he could feel himself walking across the country a couple of times and experiencing every day as if he was actually living it. But when he woke up and went home, he was completely thrown off. He kept thinking that everyone would look 10 years older, and he even thought that, he was older as well. It took him a while to adjust to his new time frame, but I guess he was just thankful that he didn't miss out on a decade of his life. I mean, it's kind of good that he wasn't 10 years older. The 19-year-long coma breaks onto our list at number 7. Well, let's travel back for a second. Let's go back to the year 1984 when a 19-year-old and his friend were involved in a terrible car crash that caused their car to fall into a creek. While his friend was killed on impact, but Terry Wallace was found the next day, but he was already in a coma. His family took care of him for the next 19 years, and they didn't know if he would ever come out of his coma. I mean, 19 years is a very long time. But then in 2003, Terry woke up and he started to talk. At first he said "Mom" when he saw his mother, and then he said Pepsi and milk. I guess he was pretty damn thirsty. He eventually got to the point where he was able to communicate in full sentences. His memory was very good, but he didn't know how much time had actually passed. Imagine being the one having to tell him he lost 19 years of his life. How would someone accept that fate? I mean, he missed several presidential elections. We gotta let him know Trump is now the president. He missed the whole Clinton administration drama. He had no idea what the September 11 attacks were, and he had to learn about the war going on in Iraq. To top it all off, he was paralyzed from the crash, but thankfully he was able to pull himself out of his coma, and he's able to enjoy the rest of his life with his family and friends by his side. The woman who falls into a coma every time she feels an emotion brings us to number 6. Think about this for a second. Imagine every time that you laugh, cry, smile, or say I love you, you have the possibility of falling into a coma. I couldn't imagine that either. I mean, how is this even possible? But for one woman, this is actually her reality. Wendy Richmond falls into a paralyzed state that is similar to a coma whenever her emotions become triggered. So basically, she has to act like a robot, no emotions, or she will collapse. She has to act like a Marcus Zuckerberg, you know, the guy with no emotions, and maybe Kawhi Leonard, although he's showing some emotions recently. Well, medication to fix her problem is way too expensive, and it isn't covered under her insurance plan. She can't even tell her kids that she loves them or laugh at their jokes. I mean, this is pretty depressing. She has to act like an empty shell, or she will have to pay the price. Either way, her condition sounds pretty terrible, and I don't think there's ever going to be a cure, and she might be the only one in the world with this condition. Lucid dreaming takes us to number 5. Okay, have you guys ever woken up from a dream and thought that it actually happened? I know for me, like, it happens quite often. Especially when you have those dreams, your teeth falls out, I wake up, I'm like so depressed because I don't have a tooth anymore. Well, according to Reddit user Brainlosh, being in a coma feels a lot like vivid dreaming. This person was in a coma after they were involved in a devastating car crash, and they can only remember one thing. They said that they were walking down the street, they fell to their knees while coughing. He grabbed his throat and looked down only to see that his esophagus was on the ground. Then he fell to the side and woke up. Later on, he learned that what he was experiencing was probably from when the doctors was removing his ventilation tube from his throat, and it didn't actually happen. So although he thought he was dreaming, he could feel and hear everything. So it was like he was having the visuals of dreaming, but something was actually coming out of his throat. It was a tube and not his esophagus. Feeling like you're dead brings us to number 4. I always thought that people in comas couldn't really feel or hear anything while they're in this state, but after researching for this video, I know this isn't the case. So we've heard stories about people feeling like they were in an alternate reality or a dream, but Reddit user TinMan556 said that being in a coma makes you think that you've died. This person was in a coma for only 8 days, and this is after they had a traumatic surgery, but they were confused on whether or not that they were alive, if they were dead. I mean, what's going on? What state am I in? He couldn't open his eyes, and he was on a medical air mattress, so it felt like he was floating. All of these things led him to believe that he was actually dead. Maybe he went up to heaven. He said that he remembers thinking that death isn't so bad, and he was hoping to see his dad. But later on, he realized that he's not dead, he's actually still alive, and he was scared that he wouldn't be able to wake up. He tried communicating with the nurses, but he was incubated and drugged, so he's essentially trapped in his body, and he wasn't able to tell his wife that he was actually okay. He just can't wake up. Let's move on. Number 3, we have the woman who forgot her entire life. Is this real life right now? Liz Sykes was trapped in a coma for weeks and suffered from extensive brain damage, but she defied all of the odds and ended up surviving. She was diagnosed with encephalitis, which is the inflammation of the brain. So when Liz woke up from her coma, her memory had been totally wiped clean. She could no longer remember her life, but she couldn't even carry out simple tasks like walking, talking, everyday things that we take for granted. All of these things had to be relearned. She spent 11 months in a special unit where she had to undergo intense physical therapy. Liz still suffers from short-term memory loss, but her recovery has actually been so motivating, and she's come a very long way. A very resilient little girl takes us to number 2. Haley Porcher was only 4 years old when she was removed from her mother's care and given to her aunt. She lived with her aunt for several years until her aunt decided to adopt her. The courts allowed this to happen even after there were dozens of calls of people complaining that they think that Haley was being mistreated. She was constantly covered in bruises and looked like she was being taken care of. Well, investigation was done and they said that she just bruised herself. Fast forward to when she turned 11, Haley was brought to the hospital because she lost consciousness. Then when the doctors examined her, they said that it looked like she was involved in a high-speed crash. They believed that she would stay in a permanent vegetative state. Her aunt was arrested for assault, but after she was bailed out, she actually committed suicide. The aunt's boyfriend wanted Haley to stay on life support because that would mean that he wouldn't be charged with murder. But after a long battle, the state won and Haley was taken off life support. But miraculously, she started to breathe on her own, and after years of therapy, she's actually now able to communicate through a letterboard. I mean, what an insane story. Topping this list, and at number 1, we have the man who can hear and feel everything. This story is both unbelievable and pretty insane. Rom was a victim of a car crash and the doctors believe that he wouldn't pull through. He spent 23 years of his life in a coma, going through the same routine every day. But it wasn't really a coma. Rom said that he tried to scream at the doctors and nurses, but no one could actually hear him. In 2006, high-tech brain scans actually revealed that he had normal brain function. Needless to say, these brain scans saved his life because now people knew that he was aware of what was going on. He was literally a prisoner in his own body and he wasn't able to move or talk, but he knew what was going on around him like all the time. That would drive me absolutely insane. He eventually learned to communicate through a computer, and although he can't move, he feels like he's alive again because those 23 years he felt extremely alone, frustrated, and angry. Well, there you guys have it. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys liked it, hit the like button. But that's it for me, guys. I will see you guys all in the next most amazing top 10 video.